Hey book lovers, Kaylee here and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. As you can probably see from that thumbnail, I went a little bit crazy with the book buying. I'm gonna blame Chapters, my happy place, because they had a really good sale going on in August where if you bought any young adult books, you got buy one, get one half off, but there was already a sale, so you got to like double down on the sale, and it has a mixture of books from that sale, my Owl Crate book, and some ARCs that I received from HarperCollins. So I guess without further ado, let's start with what I bought. So we'll do the sales first. The first book that I picked up for the Chapters Indigo sale is the special edition 20th anniversary of The Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. And of course, I had to get it in Ravenclaw because that is what I am, and it's going to match obviously with my Philosopher's Stone that I have back there, and I've just been waiting to put this on my shelf, but I've been saving it for this video, so now I can finally do that and look at the stained edges, and I just love all the information that it adds to the house, and I can just learn more about my house and show my house pride. The next book that I picked up is completely because of Pierre Ford, and I don't know if you know her on YouTube, but she is an Australian booktuber, and she raved about this series, so I had to pick up the first book because it was right up my alley, but I do not want to know too much about it. The book that I am talking about, though, is Malice by John Gwynne, and this is a beef of a book, but I have not picked up a huge high fantasy like this for a very long time, and I'm so excited to get into the series. Like I said, I don't fully know what it's about. I'm expecting typical high fantasy where you have a kingdom in trouble and you have rogues and just magic and this whole war that would be happening, so I'm very excited to pick this series up, and all of the books are about this size, so I don't know how quick I am at reading these anymore, but I'm very excited to get into a brand new high fantasy massive series. The next book that I picked up is one that I have been wanting to purchase since I first heard about it when it was released, but I never picked it up for whatever reason. And somehow there has been a resurgence about it on BookTube, and I hear a lot more people talking about it, and I don't know if that's just because I'm listening for it, but I picked up The Kiss of Deception, which is book 1 in the Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson. And this is about a girl who escapes on the day of her wedding, and she does not want to marry who she's betrothed to, and she goes off to lead a very simple life on a farm basically, and throughout her time there she ends up coming into contact with two guys, one who unbeknownst to her is actually the prince that she was supposed to marry, and the other one is essentially an assassin, but she ends up getting into a relationship with both of these guys, and I just hear that the ending is a massive twist, and I am so excited to read this book. The next book is from an author that a lot of people on BookTube seem to love, but I have shockingly never read anything by, so I picked up Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This book just sounds like a really cool adventure story, and I love adventure stories. I think that's why I love fantasy so much, is because they're just rooted in adventure, and I love it. I just love it so much. Anyway, this book follows a violin prodigy who ends up being whisked away, and she does not realize she's whisked away through time, not just through to a random place. She is whisked through time, and she ends up on the ship with this guy who is on a mission to find something in particular that apparently this girl can help him find. So they end up going on this adventure, and I just want to read this so bad. I've heard so many people just love this series. It's a duology. Passenger and then Wayfarer, I believe, is the next in the duology, but I am just so happy to have finally picked this up, and I'm so pumped to read it. This next one I had no idea about until I was perusing the stacks at Chapters and saw the sequel, but the cover had stood out to me, so I had picked it up and then discovered it was a sequel, but they didn't have book 1 on the shelves, so I ended up waiting and ordered it through the sale, and I still have the sale tag on it. So this one was on sale for $6, as you can tell, and it is called The Rift Uprising by Amy S. Foster. So this is a YA sci-fi, and the basic premise is that there is this rift and this group of kids who have been trained to be guards of the rift until someone sneaks through from another place and goes through the rift. I feel like I'm saying the rift a million times, but the person who is in charge of guarding ends up basically striking up a conversation with this person and starts questioning what they've been taught their entire lives and figuring out that there's a lot more deeper, sinister things that are happening in this world than what they had originally thought. So this I feel like is going to be action-packed, and I do know that it's a series because, like I said, I saw book 2 on the shelves. So if this ends up gripping me, I am so excited to be able to have a sci-fi series that I think is going to be really interesting. This next book is another fantasy series, and I feel like a lot of people have already heard of it, but it is The Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth... Ooh, who's it by? Sarah Beth Durst. Sorry, the sale sticker is still on it. But this book basically is about a world where there is a mortal queen, but she is the only person standing in the way of spirits and devastation happening to the world. And all of these girls are trained to take over once that queen dies. So one of these girls who's been in training ends up meeting up with a guy, and they have to go on a journey in order to figure out what is causing all of these creatures that are newly attacking the world and how to stop them. So this is the start again of another series, and I just think that it is going to be absolutely epic. And like I said before, I love adventure, so anything with an adventure in it is going to just draw me right in. Surprisingly, I have another YA sci-fi in here, but it was blurbed by Amy Kaufman, so I'm really hoping that it ends up being very, very good. But it's a sci-fi thriller called Contagion by Erin Bowman. So Erin Bowman has written other books that people have really enjoyed. This is my first foray into her writing, and it's a sci-fi, so basically there's an uphill battle that she has to climb for me here. But apparently in this situation there is a group who ends up going missing, but an SOS signal is sent out, and this other team has to travel across space because they are technically the closest to this group that went missing to do basically a search and rescue mission. But once they arrive to the planet, they find devastation everywhere, dead bodies, and a really mysterious message on the floor written by one of the deceased. So there is apparently supposed to be a very theatrical thriller aspect to this because you have multiple perspectives and a lot of disconnect and miscommunication and things like that. So I'm hoping that it doesn't end up being too much and sloppily written. But I have started reading it, and so far I am noticing a bit of a disconnect, but I am going to push through and finish it because I'm hoping that it ends up being really, really good. The next book that I purchased was the sequel to a series that I had purchased the first book of in like 2015, I want to say, and I didn't read it until just this past month. So I held on to it for a very long time, but I am so in right now for this series. I absolutely love it. So I picked up the second book, and that is Empire of Dust by Eleanor Herman, and this is book 2 of the Blood of Gods and Royals series. So it started out with the first book, Legacy of Kings, and essentially, without spoiling anything about this book or about the first book, it follows the story of Alexander the Great. But not only just Alexander the Great, it also covers a bunch of people who are close in his life, and it follows their stories. It spans so much further than Macedonia. It's a really engrossing historical fiction slash fantasy because it is based on a lot of true events, because Eleanor Herman is basically a historian and she really did her research on this time period, and she connected the dots of different events that happened in that time and meshed them together in such a cool way. There's magic involved, and there's so many really interesting characters that I have really quickly started to love this series. So I'm very happy that there's still another book out after this one that I can get, and the next book, the fourth book in the series, is coming out soon. So I don't have very long to wait between books, but I had to pick this one up because I read the last book in August, and now I'm going to read this book in September, and hopefully the next book in October, so I have a plan, but I have really been enjoying this series. And the last book that I picked up on sale is one that I have been wanting since I heard about it at the Spring Frenzy Presents event that I went to back in April. Did not get an ARC of it, but it did come out in August, so I had to pick it up, and that was These Rebel Waves by Sarah Rosh. Now, I have already read this book, but I'm going to talk more about it obviously in my September wrap-up, but I read this book in one sitting. This is the first book in the subgenre of YA pirate fantasy, and I gotta say, I am totally on board. I need more pirates in my life, and I really don't want to have to wait a whole year for the sequel to come out, but I think I have to. Oh, Okay, basically, this book covers 3 points of views. One is the prince, one is a pirate, and one is a politician, and how their lives sort of intertwine and come together. And in this world, there is basically a corrupt government, pirates, and adventure, and just amazing, amazing action that I just cannot get enough of this book. And if you are interested in delving into the world of YA pirates, pick this one up, because it's just, I just can't talk highly enough about it. So let me tell you a little bit more about what it's about. Basically, this book follows 6 years after a revolution happened to end a war. And in that 6 years since then, there has been this new government that's been trying to come into play. But during the process of this new government basically striking up peace between everybody, there is a politician who ends up being kidnapped. And they have suspected that the stream raiders, who are basically the pirates of this world, have taken him. So there is misinformation, misconstrued details that happen that cause a lot of issues for a lot of different people, and they're trying to basically stop a new war from coming, because with the kidnapping of this politician, it's just bad news for everybody involved. So what happens in this is that we have Lou, who does not want another war because during the revolution she was actually a pawn for her parents to be a spy and essentially a murderer. And then we have Vex, who is a pirate who had been tortured when he was a child because he was okay with magic. And then you have Ben, who is the prince, whose family is all about believing in the church and not believing in magic and thinking that magic is bad. So you basically have all of these points of views coming together to essentially stop an impending war. So now let's move on to the book that I got in this month's Owl Crate. I'll put a link above me here and down below to my unboxing, but I ended up getting this beautiful edition of Grace and Fury by Tracy Banghart, and I just think that this cover is so nice. I do like the original cover where you have the two sisters on either side, but the fact that they changed it so much for the Owl Crate edition is really intriguing to me. So in this world, you have one sister who has trained her entire life to become a Grace. It is her mission in life just to live well with the prince, get married, and just relax for the rest of her life and not really have to worry about anything. And then you have another sister who is the younger sister who could care less about being a Grace. She could care less about the prince or anything like that. She has her own secrets and her own life that she wants to lead. But during the time that her sister is in court, the second sister, the younger sister, ends up catching the eye of the prince. And the older sister obviously is going to look out for the younger, and she takes the blame for some of the secrets that she holds and ends up being sent away to prison. While in prison, she ends up having to fight for her life while her younger sister is in court dealing with life that she never even wanted. So this is a story that's going to be all about sisterly love and just being a fierce woman and trying to get out of a horrible situation and just surviving, essentially. So I am excited to read this one, and it is much shorter than I thought that it was, but I've had my eye on this book for a while. I just hadn't picked it up because I had a suspicion that it would be in my Owl Crate for August. So I'm glad that I didn't pick it up, but that I got it in Owl Crate. This last stack of books is actually graciously provided to me by HarperCollins as advanced reader copies, and also as a little bit of promo for an upcoming release that I'm so excited about, so let's talk about those. Now, the first book that I have here, I actually did end up purchasing a copy for myself, but then HarperCollins also gave me a copy, so I had that as a giveaway, which I did announce last week as the winner, but it is The Black Witch by Lori Forrest. And if you don't know what this book is about, it came out last year, and it is all about this girl living in a world where there's a corrupt government, where prejudice runs wild, and she is ignorant to so much of it. And in this world, she is the spitting image of her grandmother, the Black Witch. And the Black Witch ended up stopping a huge realm war, but it wasn't as much of a success as what everyone had thought. This book is full of getting over your prejudices and making decisions for yourself and figuring out how to live in a world where not everybody is as evil as you were taught that they were. I have so many thoughts and opinions on this book that I am going to have to do a book talk about it, because it just delves so deeply into so many current issues that it's just beautifully, beautifully done. And after that, I might as well talk about the sequel, which is The Iron Flower, and this comes out on September the 18th. So I did also read this book in August, but I'm not going to talk too much about it right now because I don't want to spoil anything. But this is an amazing follow-up to The Black Witch, and if you have not read The Black Witch yet, definitely do, and be ready for this to come out on September the 18th because it's just, that ending just blew my mind. So definitely keep an eye out for this. Now, if you watched my wrap-up for the Fall Frenzy Presents preview, you already know the next 3 books here that I have, but I'm just going to quickly touch on them here. But you can also watch my wrap-up of the event above me there. But the first book that I got was A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahara Mafi. So this is the advanced reader copy, and the book comes out in October, so keep your eyes peeled for that because I know that this is a highly, highly anticipated book for a lot of people. And this is essentially an Own Voices novelization of Tahara Mafi's childhood. But it's following a Muslim girl about a year after the events of 9/11 and how she's dealing with prejudice in the world and all of the fallout of that horrible tragedy. But it also talks about first love and her love of breakdancing and so many more lighter subjects. But I do know that this is going to be a heavier read, and I'm definitely going to have to be in the mood to read this type of book because contemporary is not usually what I'm drawn to. But I'm just so intrigued by this story that I'm gonna have to read it. Next, I have been waiting for this book for so long, and it is The Light Between Worlds by Laura Weymouth. Now, this book is basically pitched like Chronicles of Narnia, wherein you have 2 siblings who lived life in this mythical land, but it's primarily focusing on the after effects following in a post-war society. So you do get flashbacks between these 2 siblings being in this mythical land akin to Narnia and also being in the real world and relearning how to live in that space and dealing with the fallout of war and their family and their current future that they're going to have. So I'm so excited for this because I love the Chronicles of Narnia, and when I heard that this was similar to that and set around wartime, I was just instantly on board. So it's like historical fiction mixed with fantasy, and I can't wait. And the last book that I got from HarperCollins is an advanced reader copy of Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This one comes out on October the 2nd, I believe, so I am going to have to read this one quite soon because this is one that I have been anticipating as well. It's heavily based in Japanese mythology, and it follows where in this mythological world there has been a scroll where every 1,000 years there's the person who finds the scroll ends up getting granted a wish. However, for the last however long, the wish has always fallen into the hands of evil. So what the world has come up with is the idea of splitting the scroll apart and sending the different parts in different parts of the world and just allowing it where whoever finds all of the pieces of the scroll and brings them together ends up getting the wish. So over time, there is actually this whole section of people who are trained to find this scroll, and there is a piece of the scroll that has been hidden away with a family, and the person who now holds that piece doesn't really understand the implications of it, but is still guarding it. And then you have one of these people trained to find the scroll on a mission where they both cross paths, but they don't realize that the other has the ulterior motive to get the scroll. So I just feel like this is going to be a bunch of adventure with misinformation and just so much that can possibly happen in this story that I'm pumped to read it, and I cannot wait to delve into these pages because I need to read this book. Alright, so those are all the books that I purchased and received in August, and it is a lot. So if you have any comments on any of these books, or if you have an idea of what I should read first, definitely leave your comments down in the comment section down below because I could really use your help. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content. I do put out new videos every weekend and some bonus videos sprinkled throughout. And until next time, keep reading.